Have you ever noticed how a shift occurs when you stop trying to see everything in a bustling city like New York? Instead, you allow yourself to dive deeply into just one small part of it. It could be one of the most transformative changes you can make, not just in your travel experience, but in your everyday life. Hi, I'm Michelle, and on my channel we talk about creating a peaceful, confident life after 50, especially if you're living alone, traveling solo, or navigating retirement. When most of us travel, especially to a city like this, we arrive with a mental checklist. We want to hit the landmarks, get the photos, and make sure we didn't miss anything. There's this subtle pressure running in the background that says if you don't see it all, somehow you didn't do it right. I've done the fast-paced trips where every hour is scheduled and every stop is documented. But what I've learned, especially on this longer stay, is that the more you try to consume a place, the less you actually feel it. One of the most freeing things I've done on this trip is to stop trying to check off every box. Instead of rushing from one landmark to the next, I've started choosing just one place and staying, letting it unfold and letting myself notice things that don't show up on any itinerary. Transformation doesn't happen when you're moving quickly. It happens when you pause long enough to actually take something in. Take the High Line, for example. Most people walk it like it's a path to get somewhere. They move through it, maybe take a few photos, and keep going. But when you slow down and really sit there, it becomes something entirely different. You start to notice the layers, not just the beauty of the gardens on the skyline, but the history underneath it. This was once a working railway that transported people through the city. And now it's been transformed into this elevated park where people gather, rest, and reflect. When you linger there, you're not just seeing a place. You're connecting with what it's been and what it's become. That's the change I'm referring to. Shifting from being just a visitor to truly experiencing a place. Most travelers tend to stay in that consumer mindset. We gather sites like trophies, rush around, document everything, and leave with a camera roll full of proof that we were there. But often, very little of it sticks with us in a meaningful way. That's because we didn't take the time to truly absorb it. A significant part of this comes from the digital checklist. It's not just about what we want to capture anymore. It's about what we feel we should document. There's this subtle pressure to show that we're doing it right, which creates a bit of anxiety when you're constantly thinking about the next photo, the next moment to post. Instead of being fully present, you're just going through the motions. This pressure can quietly turn something that should feel expansive into something that feels exhausting. I've noticed that change myself, especially since I arrived here. This time, I made a conscious choice to approach things differently. I'm choosing to release the pressure to squeeze every last minute and create room for those unplanned precious moments. Some of my favorite experiences here haven't been on any list at all. They've come from sitting still. Spending time in Central Park is a perfect example of that. I've sat on benches and just watched. Runners passing by, cyclists weaving through, people walking their dogs, and tourists trying to figure out where they are. There's this constant rhythm of life happening all around you. And if you sit there long enough, you start to feel like you're a part of it instead of just passing through. There's no ticket required for that, no reservation, and sometimes there's live music playing somewhere in the distance. And you realize you're experiencing something just as rich as any paid attraction, simply by being there long enough to notice it. I've come to realize that there's a certain point you need to reach. It's not just something that happens right away. It takes time, sometimes even 20 minutes or more, for your mind to calm down and your senses to fully awaken. But once you cross that point, everything changes. You start noticing things you would have missed if you had kept moving. It's what happens when you allow yourself to pause. And this is where something even more profound begins. When you stop sticking to a strict plan, you create room for discovery. Not the kind that's prearranged for you, but the kind that feels uniquely yours. One day I was out walking Louis, not really headed anywhere specific, and I stumbled across a small community garden tucked into the city. The tulips were in full bloom, and it was one of those moments you can't plan for. We sat on a bench for a while and just took it in. No rush, no agenda. It feels like we're all pretty much following the travel trends we see online. Those must-see spots, the hottest spots, those perfectly planned adventures. And while that's all great, it can sometimes feel like you're just copying someone else's idea of a trip instead of making your own. But when you explore without a map, even for just a few hours, you start to rediscover your own curiosity. That same sense of depth really shines through when you add some context to what you're observing. Before coming to New York City, I read the book The Scandalous Hamiltons, and it completely changed how I saw a certain spot here. I was on a quest to find a fountain in Riverside Park that Robert Ray Hamilton had left funds in his will for its construction. And when I finally found it, it wasn't just a fountain. It was a whole story, a piece of history, a link to someone and a moment in time. I stood there not just admiring its beauty, but thinking about why it was there in the first place. It's when a physical place becomes something more emotional or even intellectual because you've really connected with it on a deeper level. I've had that same experience just sitting and studying the architecture here. The buildings in this city are incredible. And when you really look at them, not just glance as you walk by, you start to see the intricate details, the craftsmanship, and the design choices. And then you start to think about all the lives those buildings have held. The businesses, the families, the changes over time. It shifts you out of that surface level experience and into something that feels almost meditative. What's fascinating is that this perspective doesn't fade when you return home. It sticks around. You begin to see more in your daily life, becoming more present, aware, and connected to your environment. That's why I believe we should rethink what a successful trip truly means. It's not just about the number of places you've visited or the number of photos that you've taken. It's about how deeply you've experienced even a small part of your destination. It's about the stories that you've collected, the moments that lingered, and the way it changed your view of the world. Try leaving some room in your schedule, not just a small gap, but a deliberate one. Pick one spot each day where you'll sit and linger longer than you might think at first. Give yourself the chance to cross that threshold where your mind starts to calm down and your senses become more alive. Let yourself wander without a destination, even if it's just for an hour. Resist the urge to look everything up. Let curiosity lead instead of a plan. And maybe, most importantly, start measuring your experiences differently, not by how much you did, but by how much you felt. You return not only with memories, but also with a new way of being, more present, more grounded, and more connected to the world. And that might just be the kind of transformation we're all searching for. Thank you so much for watching.